Everyone got ready.
Good evening.
Omar.
What is the nation?
Good afternoon. Yeah. Hello. Good afternoon.
Yes,
You are
good afternoon.
welcome. You are welcome to the second session on Aquafeed development in West Africa.
Yes, hello. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes,
Hello.
We can hear
yes,
you,
we can
please.
hear you. You are very audible.
Okay. Thank you.
The normal one. Okay.
Aquaculture development in Africa. And we have 4 speakers online. We have Karen Beverica.
Please bring
We have Wisdom
it doesn't matter.
Abodaki.
Bring anything.
Then Emmanuel Ufosu and Israel Yusuf. My name is Professor Moranika Adewolu from Lagos State University here in Nigeria. And before we start, I would like to present the profile of our speakers, starting with Karen Beverica. Karen Beverica recently retired as the director of one of the largest fisheries aquaculture university in Alabama in USA. She has over 40 years of experience in warm water aquaculture. Out of these 40 years of experience, she has 20 years experience here in Africa. She has led several USAID funded projects in fish farming development and research capacity building in Rwanda, and she has about 3.5 years experience in Kenya in Aquafish, CRSP, and fishery investments for sustainable harvest in Uganda.
I'll maintain you as co-host.
She specializes in feed trawling and in feed and training and trainings of fish farmers in all aspects of fish production, pond construction, feed manufacturing, hatchery management, commercialization of fish farming for small and medium-scale farmers. You can see that she's well-rounded in every aspect of aquaculture. She has conducted on-farm training as a means of training extension workers and farmers in Africa, and she has written numerous bulletins, training manuals for fish farmers, both in English language and in French. Karen likes to say that she was educated in USA, but she was trained in USA, but she has a form education in Africa. Please help me to welcome our own Karen, who said is educated in Africa, to our first hybrid conference in West Africa. She'll be speaking to us on the challenges of aquafeed in Africa. Then the profile of our next speaker, Mr. Wisdom Abodaki, is the Chief Country Director in Sako Farms. Mr. Abodaki, you are welcome. And then our third speaker, we have Mr. Emmanuel Ufosu. He's the Country Director, Ala Aqua Limited in Ghana. He is an agribusiness and sales and marketing expert for the past 30 years and has contributed tremendously to Ghana economy in the area of tilapia and catfish feed. And the last but not the least, we have Mr. Israel Yusuf. Mr. Israel Yusuf is a livestock and aquaculture expert with over 14 years of experience. He is the managing director of Dr. Fish Agri Consultants, Warri in Delta State here in Nigeria. He has produced radio program that is tagged Vital Fishing Academy. Mr. Yusuf has his own many awards and state and national levels. You are welcome to the first hybrid aquaculture, Mr. Israel Yusuf. So going to our first presenter, I would like to invite Karen Beverica to speak on the challenges of aquafeed development in Africa. Thank you. Over to you, Karen.
Okay, hello. Are you going to put my PowerPoint up or should I share screen?
I think I don't have your PowerPoint
You can
with me.
you
I
can
think
share it from your end.
All
yes.
right, let me see if I can do that. Okay. Okay, can you hear this? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay,
Not,
we start?
yeah.
Okay. So in this
No.
session, I'll talk about a little bit about
You
the
haven't
special.
shared your screen yet.
Okay.
You would have
I
to
did share
share.
screen. Just a second. Let me see if I can go back to you. I did share screen, but let's see. Let me go back down here. Huh. Oh, okay. Let's see.
It's always the green button.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
You have
Now
it?
we have you. Sure.
Okay. All right. Let's. Okay. Very
Great.
good. So, hello, everyone. In this session, I'm going to talk a little bit about the special challenges for aquafeed production. Okay. And hopefully this will give you some appreciation for those who are making your fish feeds at both large and small scale. So we'll discuss all of these in more detail, but in Africa, there are many challenges that maybe will influence the development of fish feeds on this continent. One is that the farms are small and production's dispersed. That is both for the inputs and for the client farmers that are buying the fish feed. There's a lot of middlemen that go around collecting the inputs from the farmers. The agricultural byproducts that are available are produced by a variety of machinery, a lot that is homemade or old, so it's highly variable. The overland transport costs can be very high in many countries. Electrical power is a problem, being expensive and also sometimes quite undependable. With the extrusion technologies, you need a good steam engineer, and they can be hard to source in Africa. Contract farming for the ingredients can assure you quality, but it's difficult to implement. And the customers, the fish farmers, are not always very good at recognizing the importance of quality in fish feed, and they make a lot of mistakes in their feed management, which goes back to the feed supplier who gets blamed. So, so let's discuss this first one. The farmers are small and production's dispersed. This means you could source your feeds from up to, one truckload could source from 100 or more different farmers. And so some farms might sell sacks of maize that are well dried, other ones are wet, other ones are moldy. And so you have a huge variation on any one shipment a lot of times. You also have increased costs of collecting inputs as these farmers go from, as these trucks go from farm to farm. It also increases the cost of distributing the fish feed. So there's very little advantage in this fact. However, the one advantage in having a lot of small farms contributing to the inputs is that a lot more farmers benefit from this market of for their produce. So that's one thing to not ignore. So one of the solutions is to work through farmers' collection points, farmers' cooperatives, where they accumulate all the inputs, the ingredients one site, and they can control the quality themselves and set up a contract with the buyer. So the next problem is that middlemen are collecting a lot of inputs, and they get a lot of the profit, and they try to benefit from the farmers not knowing what the going prices are. So what happens a lot of times is the farmers know that they can adulterate some of the products because the truck driver is coming and picking up things quickly and not looking at quality. And so when the truck arrives at the feed mill, again, you'll have, there's a lot of requirement for subsampling in the truck to make sure you don't have too much adulterated products. I have seen, I have witnessed actually the dried fish vendors putting 2 shovelfuls of feed in every, sand in every sack of dried fish when they're selling them. Some feed mills have complained about, 10 kilos of nails in a sack of maize that totally messed up their magnets. So it's a really big problem. However, a feed mill can benefit from these middlemen collecting, so they don't need to have their own trucks that will often have to go around the country collecting and then making one of their trips empty. So it's good to have the middlemen, but it is a problem from having to collect from all these small farms. Again, these farmer collection points are a good solution, and at reception to have a very good subsampling program. And then possibly, blacklisting some of the people that keep selling you adulterated goods. The third thing is these agricultural byproducts can be highly variable. For example, I've seen rice bran come in at 5% protein up to 10 or 12% protein from different sources, and different mills, some of them will back mix the hulls of the rice bran, others just have really faulty equipment. So if somebody's formulating a diet, especially that doesn't know Africa, and they might be on another continent and say, add this much of each thing, they're probably using a table of what the approximate analyses are for standard rice bran. But there really isn't any standards in a lot of these countries, or if they are, they're not respected. So each feed mill needs to start keeping records of the approximate analysis of the ingredients from particular mills. For this reason, often if I'm doing some formulations, I kind of prefer wheat bran because that usually comes from larger mills with a little bit more uniform quality wheat bran coming out. So feed input tables are not very dependable for a good bit of Africa. Sometimes some of the byproducts are better than what the feed tables say, once again, because of some faulty milling equipment. So again, the feed mill is kind of forced to keep its own feed input quality tables. This means that you need to have fast means of doing analyses when you are bringing in shipments. And so some of the bigger feed mills are using this NIR technology for quick analyses, but that's expensive and only big mills can do it. Next thing is the high cost of overland transport. In West Africa, this is some years ago, there was a soybean meal plant that was shipping out of Benin, and they were telling me that it cost them $59 US dollars per ton to ship into Ghana, but it cost them about $250 US dollars per ton to ship into Nigeria. So these are huge differences, and the cost of transport is a really big impediment. Both for distributing feed around the country and getting your ingredients together. Now, since that's the case, those feed mills that are located in close proximity to the inputs and or to most of their customers will have quite a competitive advantage. And this also could reduce some of the competition from outside, because even imported feed, which is often cheaper, ends up costing close to the same once they get it in the country and distribute it around. So the solution to this is to be very clever in the placement of your mills. One feed mill in Nigeria told me that they have found it's better to place several feed mills around the country, smaller feed mills around the country, despite some of those disadvantages, but it gives them the advantage of the local transport. Now, some of these problems in cross-country transport may be resolved with the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, but we will see how that works. Electrical power. If you're running an extruder and the power cuts off, you have about 15 minutes to clean that extruder out. Otherwise, it dries like concrete inside the extruder, the mash does. So a lot of the feed mills will generate their own power so they know that they have it and that it's not going to go out. But electrical power is about twice as 2 to 3 times more expensive in different African countries compared to the US. So this makes it expensive to actually produce feed. So the advantage is that the big feed mills can afford a really good generator, and they have less advantage than the small mills. But a lot of the smaller feed mills will operate at night when power is a little bit more reliable, or they just shut down when there's no power and only operate when there is power. So that's another solution. You need to select machinery that's not too sensitive to variations in voltage. So that means some of these really fancy automated machines might not be the best solution for you. The feed mills need an action plan for quick action when the power goes out during feed production. And again, proper sizing of a generator and proper maintenance of a generator is required. For technical expertise, it starts right when the feed mill is sourcing its machinery. Excuse me? If your technical expertise is lacking, you might select poor quality machinery. You may not be operating the machinery to its full potential, and can be a big problem with worker safety. Remember, we're working in extrusion, we're working with high pressures and steam, and things can go wrong, especially with the cheaper machinery. I've seen things with their backflow really kind of blow up in people's faces. One advantage in Africa is you have a large workforce of young workers at all levels, and people that can be fairly well technically educated, and they can be easily trained if you have a good trainer to run these extruders. So the solution has been to import the expertise, try to get people who train your people and not just rely on coming in as a consultant every time. Send your staff to training, or you can do it online. I work for the American Soybean Association now, and we have funded training for extrusion technology for some of the feed mills. And you can source some of your steam expertise from sugar mills because they work a lot with steam. Okay, contract farming. It's done in many countries. It's a bit of a problem in Africa because the farmers have other constraints, so they will often receive the support from the contracting people for inputs to plant, but they might not resell all of it on contract because they have other needs and they need cash. So there have been some mills that have figured out, it takes them a few years to figure out how to do really good contract farming. But the nice thing about that is that, again, you can benefit a lot of small farmers in doing so. So I suggest to start small with only a few contracts and work out the bugs in your system, and use some social pressure through farmers groups when you can, and that helps the farmers kind of influence each other to produce quality inputs. And then remember, if you are working under contract with some farmers for inputs, remember that they have certain needs, and if you can help them meet their needs, they will continue working with you. Okay, the last constraint is that the clients to the feed mill might not know how to manage the feed, and they lack the basic production understanding. So what happens is they get poor results due to poor feed management, and they blame the feed. They might store their feed very poorly, and it gets moldy, and then they blame the feed maker, even if they even know that that's a problem. So the advantage is that once the farmers learn and they get technical advice, from the feed mill, they'll become more loyal customers. So I see some competition now arising between the feed importers who are distributing feed, the local feed mills, the small feed mills, and I can assure you the feed mills that provide the best technical backstopping are probably going to be the ones that get the most customers. So again, you need to educate your customers, start with lead farmers who already have good management, and let the other farmers be watching and follow them. The feed mill itself should run continuous trials and comparisons. Farmers tend to have more confidence in a feed mill that's growing its own fish, by the way, and using its own feed. Be friendly to your farmers. Their profit is your increased clientele, let's say. So you have to be very interested in them making a profit. If they do say that they receive bad feed, even if it's not your fault, you might want to go halfway with them on some things. So just try to keep your clients happy, and that should help. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that feed mills need to do because of this problem with input variation, but all feed mills need to do this. You need to create a reference collection that shows different grades of feed. So you don't need a lab for that, but just have a collection of different grades, and make sure the person grading your inputs is not the person who's arranging the purchase. This is probably not possible for the smaller feed mills, but it is very important for the larger ones. Have some alternative diet formulations in case some of your ingredients are not available or become too expensive. And one of the things we've been talking about for some of these small feed mills is a possibility of having available a concentrate which provides all of the key ingredients and allows the small scale feed makers to just add the basic bulk, like the maybe soybean meal and maize or wheat bran or something like that. This has proven to be very useful in feed mill development in Latin America. These concentrates usually have all the vitamins and minerals and some amino acid supplements and some high protein supplements. So typically they're added to a feed at a rate of about between 10 and 15% usually. And these these concentrates are extremely high in protein, usually 60 to 70% protein. So that's one thing to think about. I believe that in Nigeria, somebody is selling a concentrate for feed makers. There has been a lot of discussion over large scale feed making versus small scale. So I will very quickly go over some of the advantages. Typically, we say that in countries where large scale feed making starts out, everybody switches. But that's not necessarily the case in some of the African countries I've visited. The advantages of large scale over small scale, and I'm talking 10,000 tons feed or more for large scale, is that they can source their inputs at better prices. They're better able to assure quality because they can assure the laboratories. They can source the proper expertise, and they can afford to provide technical advising to their clients. Frequently, they'll use less energy per ton of feed produced because they have better extruders. But the disadvantages, and this is the advantages, this becomes the advantages of the small scale, is that you need minimum 10,000 tons per year production to justify the investment in a feed mill, minimum. You need at least $2.5 million US to start, and it's more likely 5 million these days. Because of this, you need to assure wider distribution channels, so you can be selling those 10 to 20,000 tons a year. It's very difficult to buy inputs from so many small producers. So a lot of the big feed mills are going to the really big farms only so that they don't have to worry about that. And you use less labor per ton of production, so you're not employing as many people. And the large farms aren't suited for toe milling. So if somebody wants a particular custom feed, or they want to bring their ingredients and get it pelletized, is not going to really work out at a big feed mill. But the small feed mills are really good for that. So
It's not in the oral presentation.
I think that's all I have to say, and thank you very much for your attention.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Karen. That was a very wonderful presentation. Please, do we have questions? Let's come up with our questions, please. Questions from the audience? Okay, I have some questions for you. From your presentation, you have discussed about numerous challenges facing fish and aquafeed production in Africa. And then you said that one of the solutions, instead of having a big fish feed industry, is that we have them in different locations. Now, having getting them in different locations, do you think it will be profitable for the fish producers to make ends meet when they have them at different locations, looking into the account of labor, the labor, electricity, and so many other inputs that you are going to have in the fish feed production?
It will if this particular discussion I had was in Nigeria. And so we were talking about the difference of having one mill doing 100,000 tons versus, say, 5 mills doing 10 or 20,000 tons. Okay, so it's still in the order of magnitude. So this particular company was going to disperse, and then they would have their main company to do the do the some of the laboratory analysis. Okay, so so it's like having several medium-sized mills versus one super big feed mill. All right, it's just, you know, for you to think about. I still think so. One of the interesting things about these small feed mills, by the way, is when you're extruding a feed, you take the ingredients that were already kind of dried, you grind them and mix them, then you get them wet, you extrude them, and then you dry them again. So as you notice in one photo, these smaller feed mills will either dry out in the air or they'll use simple drying techniques. So it actually uses less energy.
Who was that?
Some of the new thinking on feeding is that whenever possible, if the feed mill is really close to its clients, they don't need to dry the feed. They can just go in with the feed after the day it's extruded. And that saves a lot of energy. So, and for this to happen, it's going to be harder for large feed mills to have to distribute throughout the country, but smaller feed mills work better for that. So sometimes it makes sense as long as you look at all the advantages and disadvantages.
Thank you very much on that. And then looking,
my hand.
yes, okay, please, Dickiness and Folukare.
Thank you very much, Ma. I have a few, I thank you, the presenter, for a beautiful presentation. And I learned a lot about the suggestions you gave about the person grading should not be the person who is the input supplier. You are talking about transparency. You talked about alternative diet examples so that if one runs out, we could get that, and that concentrates with key ingredients. I know that the pioneer person, there are many companies now producing concentrates in Nigeria, but the pioneer person was High Nutrient company. Now, my take is I want to just inform everyone that the Catfish Farmers Association of Nigeria, because you made a point, you said growing its own feed and using their own feed. The association have come together to form a cooperative, and they are actually producing their feed from money contributed by members of the association, and they're using the feed. They just started last month, and they are following up on growth rate and all that. I just felt it was a good example to share with the audience. Thank you very much. And lastly, the issue of small feed mills all over, as said by the moderator, the cost, logistic cost, energy cost, and the availability of energy in different local environments and locations may not work out to be profitable with the situation that we have in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a good point. By the way, we have only 2 feed mills here in Alabama producing feed, and one of them is called the Alabama Catfish Farmers Feed Mill, and it is a cooperative of the fish farmers. So they sell the feed, and at the end of the year, it's a non-profit, so they evaluate their expenses and any other purchases they need to do for, let's say, new equipment and things. And if there's money left over, they give a rebate to the farmers based on the tonnage of feed that they've bought. So yeah, it's a good idea if you can get the necessary expertise.
Thank you very much, Dickiness and Aronia, for your contribution. And thank you again, Karen, for the presentation. I still have another question. If there is no other question coming from the audience, I'm checking through. The question is on the large-scale production of fish feed. The large-scale production. In large-scale production, that means the feed has to be distributed to different locations. How do you think that the carbon dioxide emission can be reduced through this system?
Yeah, I don't think you can say it's going to be reduced for that reason, but typically a well-managed large feed mill is using less energy per ton of feed that they produce. Okay, so there's probably some savings in that respect, but again, it really depends on where the inputs are and where the farmers are. Okay, so that's a big, you know, it's going to be variable at every site, every country.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the beautiful presentation. In fact, we've gained a lot, and I hope the fish feed production manufacturers have learned a lot from your presentation, and I hope that there'll be improvements in most of the challenges that you have given us the possible solutions. Thank you very much. And then we call on our next presenter, and that is Mr. Israel Yusuf. He'll be talking about the, sorry please, he'll be talking about the role of aquafeed development in West Africa. Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please, can you see my slide?
Yes.
Oh, I need to see it myself. Okay. Once again, good afternoon all. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. We can hear
Good
you.
afternoon. We can hear you.
Okay, can you see the slide, please?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay. It's a pleasure being here this afternoon. I appreciate the organizers of this forum, and I believe this is the beginning of a new thing in Africa. The topic before me is aquafeed development in Africa. I actually want to take our mind back to history so we understand where we're coming from. Aquaculture was first introduced into Africa to satisfy colonial recreational fishing needs. And by 1920, tilapia was successfully introduced and cultured in Kenya. Between 1940s and 1950s, aquaculture was introduced as a means of sustainable food production across Africa, with the objectives of improving nutrition in rural areas, supplementary income generation, diversification from, as a key to reducing crop failure risk and employment in rural areas. Between 1995 and 2018, there has been a lot of significant improvement in aquaculture production. I don't want to go into much details, but the compound annual growth rate of aquaculture between this period was 15.5%. And this growth was largely private sector driven. However, it was stimulated by a lot of factors such as public support, expertise, foreign direct investment, interest in aquaculture, and global awareness that was raised, especially by the NEPAD project in 2005. Now, Africa's contribution to world aquaculture production is still insignificant, less than 3%. And Africa's fish sector supports livelihood for about 12.3 million people, 25% of whom are women. And aquaculture still contributes 6% of agricultural growth and 1.3% of total GDP of Africa. We can see how important the aquaculture sector is to Africa. The top aquaculture producers in Africa are Egypt, Nigeria, Uganda, Ghana, Tunisia, Kenya, Zambia, Madagascar, Malawi, and South Africa. We cannot talk of aquaculture without talking of one key input, and that is feed. Feed is one of the major inputs in aquaculture production. In fact, it is known that feed accounts for about 60 to 85% of total cost of production in Africa. It is a major factor that determines the profitability of any aquaculture venture. Hence, development and management of fish feed plays a very vital role in aquaculture growth and expansion. Unfortunately, fish feed technology is one of the least developed sectors of aquaculture, particularly in Africa. Now, the fish feed development in sub-Saharan Africa has not made a significant progress in aquaculture, as expected. It is also one of the fundamental challenges facing the development and growth of aquaculture in our continent. There has been a lot of research. I'm glad that we have a lot of academia on this platform today. A lot of research has been ongoing on inexpensive feed ingredients. But this has not contributed greatly to aquaculture development. As of 2018, the Africa aquaculture market size was evaluated to be $9.1 billion. And the demand for feed is set to grow by 10.3% between 2019 and 2025. You can see huge potential, but the industry is dependent largely on importation of both manufactured feed and feed ingredients. There are several players in the aquaculture feed market that have taken advantage of this growth. Some of them include Scretti, Olam. I don't want to call names. We know them. Aqua, Grand Series, Premier Feeds. I want us to do a case study of two countries. The first is Egypt. Egypt currently has 73 operational feed mills with an annual production capacity of 1 million tons of aqua feed annually. The private sector feed mill produces 90% of total feed, while the government-owned feed mill contributes just 10%. Between 80 and 85% of the total feed is produced in pellet form, while between 15 and 20% are extruded. Scretti is the largest feed producer in Egypt, followed by Aqua, which produces feed for both freshwater and marine fish. The second case study is Nigeria. Nigeria has the highest number of feed mills in sub-Saharan Africa. But these feed mills are dominated by small-scale operators whose production capacity range from between 0.5 to 3 tons per hour. And they account for 60% of local feed production. But they also depend on both imported raw materials and local raw materials. There's insufficient local production and competitive use of ingredients with other livestock. The industry is exposed to increase in price due to rising exchange rates. Now, the production of high-quality fish feed has also been a major constraint hindering the growth of aquaculture industry in Nigeria. Looking at all this, we can't say aquaculture has not developed. When we look at where we're coming from and where we are today, there has been significant developments. Before now, 100% of the feed we use in Nigeria, for example, is imported. But today, local production has cut short that number. That is significant development. Before now, all raw materials come from overseas. But today, there has been a lot of research into using locally available feed material. I'll give you an example. Some time ago, when fish meal became a problem, we began to look into alternative protein source. And we stumbled across great research work by other academias. We further researched those claims, and we found them to be useful in production of fish feed. What is the way forward? If we want to tap into this $9.1 billion industry, there's a need for us to further research, develop, analyze, and innovate in the feed industry. 3 things we need to research: processing equipment, feed formulation, and feed materials. Let's talk a little about them. Much emphasis has been placed on least cost feed formulation and getting the lowest feed cost per unit of sellable products. If we want to increase our profitability, we need to find a way to reduce cost of production. All these left efforts had led to steady improvements in growth rate, feed conversion, and livability under intense commercial conditions. Prior to some of this developmental work, feed conversion ratio among fish farmers was very poor. But after a lot of research and extension work, feed conversion ratio increased, growth rate improved, livability improved. What other impact will science and technology have? Processing equipment will be improved. This will increase processing efficiency. This will help develop environmental friendly machines. It will help increase safety. It will also help us in the ability to process new feed ingredients. We still believe there is a lot of feed ingredients in Africa that we can utilize to further reduce our cost of production. There's a need also to understand that when we apply science and technology, it will help us develop equipment that will retain a lot of nutrients during processing. When science and technology is applied to feed formulation, new products will be developed. I'll give you a simple example. I was a consultant to one of the feed, or I am a consultant to one major feed organization in Nigeria. We did a research about 6-7 years ago using some ingredients. This helped reduce cost of production. It helped us to develop new products. Currently, there are some companies in this country that have 3 different variants of the same feed. You hear premium, you hear what they call high quality, and then you hear economy brand. This was the result of our research. We had to find a way to ensure that even the poorest of the poor that cannot afford to buy high quality feed is still able to buy feed to sustain his fishes, his or her fishes. Now, science and technology will help in the development of new enzymes. Because of enzymes development, we have had high level of digestibility. Science and technology has also helped in improved feed conversion ratio. I'll give you 2 other examples. Through science and technology, we have been able to begin to think of plant-based protein rather than animal-based protein. We are also looking at algae such as spirulina, seaweeds, azolla, duckweed as replacement for fish meal in aquaculture. If we can invest massively in this research, I believe it will significantly drop the cost of fish feed in Africa. What other impacts will science and technology have on material? We'll be able to maximally utilize feed materials. We'll have new uses for these materials. There will be enhancement of flavor, color enhancement, increase in palatability. There will be improvements in the health of the animals. There will be reduction in pathogenic bacteria. There will be enhancement of immune competence, probiotics, and decrease in attachment of harmful bacteria within the gut wall. Next steps. It is time for us in Africa to innovate or we perish. We need to take our minds and our hearts off foreign-based ingredients and look inward. Innovate. Innovate. It is time for action. Because if we can develop our aquaculture sector together, we can end poverty. Thank you for your attention.
Wow, that's very interesting and wonderful.
Moderator?
Thank you very much, Mr. Israel Yusuf, for the beautiful presentation. And the line is now open for questions, contributions, and comments.
My hand is raised up.
Sorry, please. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Very insightful, and I gained a lot. I just want to suggest that I'm aware that NIFRI has done a lot of work on the use of clupid fish in feed formulation. That, yes, you've spoken about research in plant-based protein sources, but we also have abundance of raw materials, fish raw materials, both freshwater and marine, like the Arioma species. And I would want us to also look in that direction where we are feeding fish with fish. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with the plant-based protein sources, but I know for that there is issue of storage and management that sometimes leads to poor quality of those plant materials if they are not well managed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So over to you, Mr. Yusuf.
All right, thank you for that. Our decision actually to look into plant-based protein source was cost-based. Realizing that animal-based protein is quite expensive. And if we want to actually ensure that the poorest of the poor, the smallholder farmer, make maximum profits from aquaculture, there is a need to find a way to reduce our cost of production. And one major thing is feed. And that's why our interest in plant-based protein source was stimulated. However, we'll look at...
Okay, let me give you an information that can be useful to you. At the Kanji Dam, there's a part of it where we have large abundance of clupids. and it's not being fished at all over the years, just because of the local cannot afford to buy what do you call it, the trawler, the small trawler that we exploited for them. So we have that being wasted year in, year out. Because I read a proposal asking for funding to be able to exploit that, which will reduce the cost of fish meal available for our farmers in Nigeria. So I think that's one way to look at. And earlier on another session, somebody from Ghana was saying that Nigeria does not use a large water body, which is true. This is something that can be done. I know that in Kwara State, some people are doing it. You just put your clupid there and you harvest them to make fish meal for your farm. Some even feed directly, clupid directly to the food. Just some information. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information. We will explore it. And to also add to it, we actually began a research work in Lagos around Ibejuleki, looking at how to reduce the impact of environmental degradation on the coastal communities, trying to see how we'll develop cage culture along their water bodies. Some of these live clupids, I think I'm going to introduce them to that water. Oh. Carry on from there. Somebody asked if we are doing something with black soldier fly. Yes, we're currently researching black soldier fly. The only challenge we're having now is commercial production of black soldier fly. That is the only challenge, major challenge we're having.
Yes, I have my hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Yusuf. Please, Colin Jodo, your question, please.
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I want to ask the feed producers or the manufacturers on the panel, and possibly the distributors as well. What has been the challenges in sourcing ingredients from the countries that they produce feed in? Because if they have to always be importing their raw materials from outside, then that will obviously be a very big challenge in terms of the duties they need to pay. And for that matter, the prices of their feed will be quite expensive. I want to ask what the challenges are, or what challenges they face when they have to source the ingredients locally from the countries that they produce their feed. Thank you.
Okay. Before somebody answers, let me weigh in on that. First of all, there was a time I was speaking with the MD of one of the companies, and he said to me, it was cheaper to import maize, for example, from South Africa than to buy in Nigeria. That's one. Number two, quality. Our storage is poor. Currently, the third thing is the impact of this banditry. A lot of farmers are not going to farm now, so there's no raw material. So these are some of the things I know causing the problem. Please, others can weigh.
Then, if I may contribute in that aspect, in sourcing for locally produced raw material here, drying, that one is very important, and then making it into mix, that is into powder form before selling. And the majority of our farmers in the village, some they have access to little or no electricity, and this one has been a major challenge when it comes to grinding and some other forms of production. Mr. Emmanuel Ofosu, your hand is up.
Yes,
Mr. Collins, can you put down your hand, please?
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Very good. The question about feed dealers importing raw materials instead of getting raw materials locally. We need to go back to our agronomic practices as to how the raw material is grown on the farm, how it is nurtured, how it is harvested, stored, and then distributed to the fish feed companies. That is a problem we have. We have unstandardized, agronomic practices, thereby affecting or moving from the farm to the finished product. Let's even use maize as an example. This particular season, you can have a maize that is very good when you test it at the laboratory from the same farm. The next season, go and buy the same maize and it has aflatoxin issues. These are some of this is just an example. These are some of the things, in addition to small scale farms or farmers that deal in these raw materials. That one too, let me even go to tomatoes, which has nothing to do with us. The same thing, there could be a glut. The next season, go and buy tomatoes and there's shortage. So some of these things are the problems we face, that we tend to import the raw materials instead of getting the raw materials local. There are other factors, policy decisions and others will come in. So that is that.
Thank you very much. Any other contribution or question?
Yes, I just raised my hand and the last speaker sort of took out of my mouth what I wanted to say. And that has to do with mycotoxins. Actually, mycotoxins were first discovered in fish, and it is from the feed that they took. So that is a major issue, because from the plant-based materials, handling is very important. And that is one thing that in agricultural practice, we have not established best practices yet. So there's a lot of contamination. And then when people use preservatives, we call it, you have issues of residue, and all this can be transmitted to fish and then from fish to man. So we have to be careful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
May I add a few words, please?
Yes.
Yes, so I think that...
please tell us your name.
My name is Lily.
Okay.
I think the earlier speakers have spoken about standardization and of practices, but I think that in addition to that, extension has a big role to play, because farmers may not understand the impact of not adopting these practices at the end of the day, which comes back to the food on your table. So if we can also invest more into extension to farmers, at the end of the day, would also have a way to improve our feed quality as well.
Thank you very much for that contribution. So I want to divert our discussion now to Mr. Emmanuel Ofuso, and then to Mr. Wisdom Abodapo, the Chief and Country Director of Sako Farms, and Mr. Emmanuel Ofuso, the Director of Aquafeed in Ghana. Now, the question I want to first of all ask is that, do you, in the production of fish feed, do you have any government regulation that is guiding your production? Mr. Emmanuel Ofuso, please.
Yes, there is, because before you even import, we import directly from Denmark and then Germany. Before you even bring,
we are a distributor.
Yeah, before you even bring in, you need to go through the institutions that see to the quality, let's say the quality issues, quality assurance and everything. You need to pass through all these institutions to be sure that the feed that you're bringing in satisfy their requirements before you are allowed in. Over there, that is in Europe and then in the US or advanced countries, they find it very easy to comply with this because of what I said earlier. that before the raw material even get to the factory, all those standards has been followed. So it is very easy, or it is straightforward to pass through this when the product is coming from, especially Europe or maybe US. But when it comes to localized one, that is where the issue comes in. And that's where you need to be sure that from the farm, the right thing has been followed. Extension has been carried out, application of fertilizer or, manure, fertilizer or manure, whatever, has been done as expected. And then the finished product or the raw material that will come out will be able to satisfy the requirements that will be set up by the same government institutions. Other than that, you may have a problem. And that is why some feed, and I mean some feed or some finished product, at times doesn't, and I'm saying it again, at times doesn't go by or doesn't get the expected results from the farmers. And then, as Karen said, then the feed manufacturer is blamed. And as another speaker also said, that the residuals are also found in fishes for us to also consume. So these are the chain that when the raw material has a problem, it goes down to we even consuming it unknowingly. So that's how we follow it from external sources, very easy, but internally at times it's difficult to pass the test.
Thank you very much. In other countries, yes. Any contribution, please, apart from Ghana?
Wisdom online.
Yes.
A contribution to what Mr. Oposu just mentioned in line with your question.
Yes.
With regulation in Ghana. Yes, it is really vigorous that there is a total compliance of rules that must be followed, because the product that you are churning into the market is a food-graded product which must really comply with all the regulations as have been stipulated, i.e. the aflatoxin issues and then what have you. So there is really regulatory authorities. We're talking about the Environmental Protection Agency, that you have a mandatory quarterly report to them. You have the GSA in Ghana called the Ghana Standard Authority. That really gives you double certification for your operating environment and also certification on the product. That also requires you that every quarter, all productions that you're doing, apart from your internal quality checks, you comply with that by doing periodic tests also on that. Food and Drugs Authority is also involved in this by actually granting a certification also on the product. Beyond that, you have the environmental controls within the areas that your company is situated. So imagine you are in the industrial city like Tema. You have the TMA environmental unit that also follows up to with their measures in way of making you being compliant with that. So you have the sanitation and others. So in a nutshell, there is really regulatory activities guiding the activities of us to make sure that there is a complete compliance to the rules that are there, leading to safe products going into the farms. On the part of those who are into manufacturing here. But I will chain out a lot if I'm ready to drop my presentation to you and then also to the team that are constantly on. Bye.
Thank you very much for the answers to that question. And I hope we have the same procedure too in Nigeria here. I'm directing that to Dr. Fish. Do we have the same procedure in Nigeria?
Yes, we also have the same procedure in Nigeria. However, the challenge of regulation is only strict on large-scale commercial producers. the small-scale commercial producers don't even obey regulations. All they are after, unfortunately, is their profits. Once upon a time, we had to stop a particular feed mill from producing feed that we deemed hurtful for human consumption. Why? The raw materials were actually awful. Very, very awful. I don't want to talk much about that, but we were able to help educate the feed miller to see the negative impact of what he is doing. We have to tell them and teach them that the flesh of fish, the quality of the flesh is determined and is dependent on the quality of feed, which is also determined and dependent on the quality of feed raw material. So when he saw the correlation, and we told him, but adventure, one of your own children will consume that fish, that unwholesome fish, and to have a negative impact on that child. You've seen that because of your quest for money, you have injured your own self. And that man, he learned his lesson, let me use that word, and he began to do the right thing. So yes, we have regulation, but only big feed millers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fish. So, Mr. Wisdom Abudapo, do you have any presentation for us?
I do.
Please.
So we can go. Thank you very much. Thanks, the earlier presenters, Yusuf and Karen. Nice having you around. It's so impressive seeing you. And hello to my friend, Mr. Ofosu. Yes, I'm actually from Cycle Farms, Ghana. And let me just share my slide with you so we can really get from there. Is my screen showing up?
Not yet.
Okay. Please let me know how we can roll.
While you are preparing to get your screen together, can I call on Mr. Ibukun Olaleye for his contribution?
Okay, I have screen actually, so.
Hello, I said while you are waiting for Mr. Wisdom, Mr. Ibukun Olaleye, you are raising up with your hand. Can you please tell us what you want to share? A few minutes, please. Okay, it's
or maybe I have to get my presentation.
Yes.
The screen shared.
Yes, and you would have to share your screen to share your presentation.
Yes, I have done that.
It's not showing yet.
Interesting.
Okay, while you are getting ready, can we call Mr. Emmanuel Ofuso for his presentation while Mr. Wisdom is getting ready?
Can you see mine?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Challenges of aquafeed developments in West Africa. Thank you.
Okay. Let me start. This is Alaqua. We have quickly, we've been in the system for 50 years in about 60 countries and the third largest in the EU. We in Ghana is a distributor office, employs over 20 different nationalities, factories in 7 countries. The essence of this is we have one in Egypt and then we have one in Zambia. The others are in Europe. Then we are into 30 different species that we are working on. when you get to the map itself, that's the areas that we are. We're in Nigeria, we're in Ghana, sales office in other West African countries, Cote d'Ivoire, part of it, Benin. And then the focus is what we have there in West Africa. That's come again.
I'm saying that your slides have not been put in slide mode.
Oh, sorry. Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Now that we have this, the focus in West Africa is what we have there. We're looking at production units, sales organizations, and then we're looking at setting up an academy in the West African sub-region. Now, the main thing is the challenges that we have. I started by saying that we have the issues there is a good agronomic practices and standardization of raw materials for fish feed. It's yet to filter through the chain. As I indicated earlier, this is the problem. We have so many examples of this that has been stated earlier, with maize as being part of it, and the effects up to when we even eat the fish. Then we have inadequate quality seed as a basis of good raw materials and its consequent effect on seed quality. We all know that most of the seed that the farmers do plant, at times, if it's a generation, it will be like from the same farm for over 10 years, which has lost its potency, but because we don't have it in large scale, we don't have a choice than to go for it. Again, we have large scale cultivation as an issue. I indicated earlier that because of when you depend on farm A or area B for your raw materials, the next season will be a problem. You go there and I don't have feed. We don't go by, let me say, irrigation systems, or they are limited. So depending on the weather of the year, at times there's a glut, at times there's no raw materials. Then you have to depend on imports again for raw materials. Other nutrients, vitamins and additives, and its availability in West African sub-region is an issue. We may have it in Nigeria, as has been said by some of the speakers. Yusuf just said it. But what about the other countries? Nigeria is not West Africa. We're talking about West African sub-region. And the question is, if it is only in Nigeria, what about the other sub-region, or what about other countries in the sub-region? There's also another issue. Resident or localized state-of-the-art R&D departments to support feed development in the region. What we have, and from all the speakers, are from the universities, you know, and we've stated clearly that there's a gap between the research and industry, and that gap has not been filled since. It is always filled when we are having chats like this, or when we are having seminars like this. But when we go back to our offices, it ends there. Human resources is an issue. I mean, the other time I had, as I read from social media, this time around, it's not the qualification of the human resource, but trust is beginning to be an issue now for the human resource that we have in our industries. Industry location and policy initiatives by government to support such establishment closer to aquaculture enclaves. A speaker just said it, where that is Karen, where she talked about transportation of feed to the farmers. Now, if we can have smaller establishments as it is in Nigeria, but they need to go by the standard set up by the institutions, I think it will help us a lot. But we don't have this as well entrenched policy directives in West Africa. It may be in certain enclaves, but it's not in all the sub-region, as I can say. Now, development of feed to solve fish mortality in the sub-region. When we come to human, let's say human existence, we are trying to develop food that will serve as medicine, you know, food supplement, this, that. Here we are, Ghana especially 2 years ago, those who bear with me, almost about 80% of tilapia died. And they are still dying, you know. But here we are, the feed we have, we've not been able to come out within the sub-region because this mortality is not in Europe, it's not in the US, it's not in Thailand or Asia, but it's in West Africa. So our research department, what are they doing? It's not only feed, you know, but what goes into the feed that will help solve this mortality issue. It's a challenge that needs to be handled by the R&D that I talked about, which is a bit of a problem. Now, mortality of fishes affect feed delivery and consumption, because if you have the feed and it's not being bought because the farm has lost its fish or the farmer has lost its fish, what happens? You produce and the feed get expired, and that is a loss to the feed companies as well. Extension officers has been flagged and overflagged. But what do? We have the officers. Do we have the men? Do we give them the resources to work? We do have, support from donor agencies. 2, 3, 4 pickups end up at the capitals. They don't get to the regions where it's supposed to be sent to. So what do? They have even motorbikes they don't have. How do you expect them to work? So they sit in the office morning, evening, they close, they go back. And the farmer ends up suffering. Duplication of licenses, permits from national, region, districts is also hindering establishment of feed companies in the sub-region. One certificate, you need it from the national. The same certificate from the region. The same certificate you need from the district. As if it is just a one-day business. Try it and you see how it is like, especially in Ghana. And you get frustrated and you leave it as it is. Trade barriers. Stringent measures at the borders, inhibiting trade among ourselves. Nigeria has a raw material, so much that Ghana can depend on. You try importing the raw material from Nigeria to Ghana, and you understand what I'm talking about. We who import, that we are trying to even establish our presence in the region. Varying custom duty requirements, thwarting free trade among member states in the sub-region. It is just a follow-up from the last point that I just made, that if I want to import raw material from Nigeria or export from Ghana to even Cote d'Ivoire, it is something that we need not even go there. High import duty leading to high fish feed prices. We keep on increasing our prices. What is the cost? It's an import duty. So we need policy makers to look at this. Exchange rate is another area that we don't need to go there. Which is every day it keeps on changing. Every day our currency keeps on dwindling. So much so that it affects we, the feed importers and feed dealers. The farmers at the end of the day equally suffer, right? And it's something that needs to be done. Something needs to be looked at by the policy. Those who take decision at the top there. Cumbersome procedures of even transferring your money back to suppliers. Some countries are good, but we are talking of the West African sub-region. It doesn't apply to all. Some areas get your money out and it's hell. High prices on imported feed due to cost transfer of raw materials at the international market. Here we are in the sub-region. Europe will go and buy the raw material from, let's say, Brazil. They will add up the cost to us. So by the time the feed gets here, we have two costs to, carry on with, i.e. the international market cost and our local cost here. It makes the feed expensive and the farmer suffers. Now, possibility of lowering feed quality to break even due to above factors, therefore affects the feed quality, affects fish growth, and affect profitability as a whole. And we need to look at it carefully as a challenge. Propose solutions. With all these, we need to find a way of moving forward. Taxes should be reduced at the ports to ease trade among member states. The rhetorics are beginning to be many. We need to start implementing what we say all the time. There is a need to implement policy directives to ease the establishment of fish companies in the region. There should be an effort, a special one, or something that the government says we want to do to help increase protein consumption. So based on that, let's help aquaculture. The figures has been thrown out by UC as to what we need to get from fish. Karen equally did the same thing. So if we know all this, why are we helping the feed companies, to establish close to, the enclaves to help? Tax rebates will equally lead to, reduction of fish feed. Policy directed to improve cultivation of raw materials. At least in Ghana, we have cocoa, which has a lot, or maybe government establishment structures to help cultivation of cocoa. Why can't we do the same for other raw materials for fish feed? Even the cocoa, do we even eat the chocolate? No. But here we eat fish every day, but we don't have anything like that. If we have at all, it's limited, that the farmer doesn't really benefit. Large-scale raw material farms should be encouraged by policymakers. Nigeria may have more than we have, so I can use mine. When we go to Afram Plains, we have the land there. What is the government doing as far as, helping large-scale raw material farms, for the industry? Again, state-of-the-art laboratories and research institutions should work towards eradicating fish mortality, as was said earlier. We've talked about all what they can do, but fish mortality hasn't come up. And it is something that is killing the industry, especially in Ghana, and especially tilapia farming. You start with a fry of about 1 million, and by the time they get to grow, you have just about maybe 10,000 or 20,000. This is what I have for my group, and maybe possibly ready for the questions that follow. So I will say, Allah Akbar, let's grow together, and we'll benefit together too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very good presentation. And is Mr. Wisdom ready for his presentation, please? Yes. You are raising your hand?
Yes.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm Francis Ejay. Yeah, on Mr. Pusu's presentation on solution, you made mention of the government coming in to help, like we have that Aquam Prince, the Aquam Prince where you can produce a lot of materials to help the fish industry. However, I'm also thinking that is there a way that the fish industry, the feed industries can also help by giving some subsidy or incentives to farmers to produce at the standardized way that he's talking about, so that they can also help the poor farmer who is also trying to bring something to help the fish industry, fish feed industry. Thank you. Am I clear?
Hello?
Yeah, can I come in?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is true. The fish feed manufacturers can come in, no two ways about it. I can give an example here where there has been a backward integration of some of this big industry. Nestle has done it, Guinness has done it, Accra Brewery has done it. So why not? The fish industry, the fish feed industry can do it. But there must be a policy direction before you go in, so that you know that the government has a backing, or you, the feed producer, has a backing from the government. Then in that, you're going to be committing money. You know, it's not going to go down the drain. You're not going to give the money to the farmer. The next day, he marries about 2-3 wives. He goes to buy maybe a saloon car or a 4x4 or V8 and sitting with that money. So once we have all these structures in place, then it is easy to channel money or channel resources into it to help all of us. So it is true, we are willing to help, but the structures must be there, the policy direction must be there, and then we follow.
Thank you very much. Let's quickly move to the next speaker. Are you ready, please? Hello? Yes, Mr. Wisdom. Hello, we can't hear you. Can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, moderator, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can see clearly.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I think I'm going to be very snappy. Most of the points have been dwelled on by the three speakers. So I would really go off on the key point on the introduction side and go straight just to tell you a little bit about Cycle Farms. Cycle Farms actually is a French Ghanaian-based company in Ghana. We are into manufacturing of fish feed. We have two components in our fish feed, which has to do with the insect meal incorporation. And also we have the fish meal also as a source of protein. The point from Yusuf on challenges of BSF, I think it is well addressed here, and it's really good for this opportunity to share ideas and see how to grow better. So here we actually produce fish feed in Ghana and have been looking forward. Considering the topic on challenges of aquafeed facing in the West Africa zone, we actually from Circle Farms actually looking at challenges in a very positive way by considering challenge as a demanding or a stimulating situation. And out of those challenges, it becomes a success seat for us to drive or cruise in it. We use this challenge to aim to contribute to food independence on the continent, depend on available data, and then also positioned Ghana as one of the first countries that we actually growing BSF here, processing it and then transferring it into a complete fish meal with supplements that are needed for the feed formulation. And this is really giving us, we're doing this for a reason to have a competitive global aquaculture space in terms of pricing. At Cycle Farms, we equally also accord ourselves to the SDG goals. And the brand name of our feed is the Enampapa. For the past 2 years that we've been in the market in the aquaculture sector, producing for both tilapia and catfish, we focus on the quality and also results based on FCR. On the side of government, the challenges that we have looked at, the government really have no excuse than to help or to associate itself. There is a need for infrastructure. These are the thematic areas that we have really looked at. We have looked at infrastructure. One of the infrastructure side is high cost of energy. Ghana today is paying not less 0.38 kilowatts of energy, and it is really not the best. As agro-processing companies, we are actually not permitted to charge VAT on our activities, but then these inputs are captured in our operational costs, example like electricity bill, and then also import duties that you need to really file for exemptions, which take very frustrating moments. We have companies that are enjoying this facility. Moderator, can you check the volume because I can hear myself? Hello?
Okay, it's better.
Yes, thank you. So I need to. So we looking at government actually taking a look or a lead on tariffs exemption on inputs like fish meal.
Can you increase your volume, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
All right. So government should actually take a look in addressing issues on import duties, example, fish meal, fish oil, and other machinery parts that really come into the market for our industrial use. We have also identified high cost of lending, and it is not flexible interest rate for companies to actually assess financial support also within the space to have flexible operational product at the end of the day to make the farmer come out with an affordable aspect of fish price at the gate. We equally have issues on the machinery cost and maintenance due to distance and also technological changes. We are looking forward that our technical universities here will be empowered, and then also the local workshops would also be in to have some kind of efficiency and then have the acumen to have some kind of immediate or short-term replacement of parts anytime you are faced with any challenges. Though there is huge provision for spare parts in warehouse, which is equally a huge investment or lockup of capital. Transport costs have been addressed by almost everybody, which is not an exclusive thing to Circle Farm yet, because we in the process do haul raw materials to site, and some of the raw materials, especially to the insect one, has to do with fruit baggers from Blue Skies or any of our partners, and it is purely a transport of huge amount of water for processing. These are a few things that we're looking at for government to really take a look at. For the past 15 years in the industry or more, there have been very huge importation of fish feed into the country, which really had a huge on excess demand or demanding for forex, and also for the government actually also complaining of losing this. But we have equally come into a country that we are having local production, which the government is currently benefiting on, because there is export and other things that is also bringing benefits to the table of government. Yesterday's presentation from GIPC, we saw we actually pay attention to the numerous opportunities that the chief executive of GIPC actually showed to Ghana, showed us about the numerous arable lands and then the opportunities that this industry actually have to go with. So once there are those opportunities from those sides, we call for their support in that regards. Because those supports are not coming, you have some farms that are adopting themselves their own local feed and stuff like that with less quality. And due to this, they actually have compromised on water pollution, because they do not have the acumen or know how with less nutritional values and other things, due to the fact that the impact of feed costs to them, it's really quite a problematic issue to them. We equally also see for sure that there is a need to have very collaborated way on whereby R&D, research and development will be quite strong, because at the moment we have agencies like the Ghana Standard Authority, Food Research Institute. We are looking forward to more collaboration, especially to the University of Ghana. We have a lot of things available to our operational activities in terms of research, quality assurance testing facilities, and this would go a long way to keep to the quality and then the protection of the product, because this requires, in absence of this, the companies are actually spending quite a huge sums of money, constantly taking batches of products outside the country for analysis and getting to know that you are in conform with your quality procedures and whatever it takes, because being an ISO organization, you need to conform to all the norms that is required. We also see the collaboration that should come between industry and then academia to bring this kind of eco-friendly formulations and other collaborative researches. If these challenges or these things can be addressed, it will go a long way to make local feed or feed manufacturing in the country be quite ahead of it. We're looking at technology transfer in this as well. And Mr. Kosu have mentioned about the extension officers or agents that are really supposed to be the arm of training and stuff. But this has become a tool for the manufacturer to actually get on the farms to now become a helper to the farmer by adding some kind of training in all these aspects, of which it is really important because at the end of the day, it gives you the opportunity to have direct connection to your end users. It gives you the opportunity to have a feedback on productivity or the quality of results that you are expecting. But we hope to see that when there is more collaboration or support in this regard, there will be a very evolution in that way of lifting up activities. We equally looking at market. The market, for instance, we knew for sure 2008 when we launched our activities, it was really a very turbulent time for us. That was the era of the ISK&V that really hit the market, and then the mortality level mentioned by Mr. Fosu was really terrible. In situations like that, requires very proactive action from leadership to way of protect the investment and business and employment as a goal. We have really come to that level to calling on authorities also to support. Government is doing quite a bit of it, but we on our side sees that there is really a lot that we can bring on board as stakeholders in the industry, and seeing things, we can bring those things to their attention. And that is why we will call for strong enforcement of law to respect biosecurity measures. We would call for more education also for law enforcement entities that have been tasked to carry out those mandates. And those things will be a very good way to actually protect the market and then protect the investment that is being made. At the same time, also promote employment, which is key to youth development in every way. Market overview also, if you talk about raw materials, we know for sure Nigeria is a powerhouse, Ghana, Ivory Coast, and all the neighboring countries around us. We, on our side here, are actually calling also for irrigation of farming needed to give us some leverage on raw materials such as maize, soy, sorghum. We have really heard everybody talking about maize, talking about resources. They are the key inputs to our activities. And if we can have a local production of some of these products, we stand a chance to have a reduction by price between 10 to 15, which is a big impact to the farmer and also the final product that is coming back onto our table for a good market pricing. This would really also enhance the value chain. Based on the last question, but somebody asked right away about security to buy products from them or ensuring that, because once there is farming and all needed agronomic practices are respected in terms of all inputs, yes, the feed mill would really be assured to know that yes, there is really a quality product, not really a bad product that can jeopardize their production, depend on for their operation. So government needs to look at all these things in putting up those measures to actually support us. We've seen also issue on policy and legislation. On our side, we are looking at calling for a committee on aquaculture development. That really must be understood very well. That once we have such a committee from the parliament of this country, which would go a long way to also bring some better efficiencies to whatever is currently going on. Because the sector is really a huge sector on its own. And
Mr. Wisdom, please be rounding up.
Yes, the sector, thank you. The sector is a huge one on its own. And we are looking at it that when government should put up measures in this way, we can really have a good support in that regard. On the side, going forward, I think I would be, I have really touched base on this. Leadership is one, government really leading the way, and then integration of this policy-wise is there. Conclusion, it's really on meeting the SDG goals. Government have no choice. It is a must. Every government have to comply with SDG goals, and we are looking at it in this regard. I think on this running it, I'm just really concluding with this by thanking the organizers for the function for the conference, and also calling for more collaboration to see how best we can promote this and use these challenges as a tool to not a negative tool, but as positive tool to bring big impact onto the continent or the West Africa zone for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wisdom. That's a very beautiful presentation. We have about 2 or 3 minutes for any question or contribution, please. Any question or contribution? Okay, there's a question here, and that question is for Mr. Ofosu. Is that what efforts are you manufacturers making to influence government policy?
Okay.
Mr.
Yes.
Quickly, please. 1 minute.
Yeah. Can you? Okay, good. The effort is nothing but dialogue, right? The effort is nothing but dialogue, and the dialogue comes in when the manufacturers are aware that there is this thing on the table. Other than that, then we have to go through the channel. The channel is Fisheries Commission, who is normally close to us. The channel is through possibly an MP, who is also close to us. The channel is also through dialogue as we are having now, or conference as we are having now, that beyond the conference, when the conclusions are drawn, these things will be tabled, and then we take it from there. That is where you need to start from. Other than that, you can't jump the gun. Go straight to the president and say, I want this thing done. We can't do it that way. So the people will live, or who live with us, cabinet agents who live with us within the enclave, within their district, within the localities. That's where we need to start from, so that the information can be couched well for a presentation to the agencies that are supposed to work on it.
Thank you very much. And quickly, and there's another question too. Is there a way for the private sector to contribute to solve some of the challenges that you've mentioned so far, in addition to what you think government can do?
Exactly. It is the private sector can contribute. What are we doing now? We are contributing. We are dialoguing, because I have my problem in my bedroom. Another, agency has this problem in his bedroom. What are we doing now? We're putting it out there. So once we're able to do this, in my own small way, we are employing people, right? In my own small way, we are feeding the farmers. In my own small way, we are offering technical services, right? This is what we are doing in our own small way, but it must be a conglomerate one, a bigger one. And before that one is done, that is where we need the big father, that is the government, to prop us, so that it becomes a national thing for all of us to follow.
Thank you very much for that contribution. And quickly, yes.
Yes, there is always a huge space for the private sector to always help in so many forms. In terms of advocacy, bringing everything together. And exactly once we see ourselves working efficiently in our own little ways, governments would surely be there, and the platform created for us today would probably be broadened, because as we can always, every good industry is always ahead of the institutions. This is exactly what we see in the aquaculture sector in Ghana. The industry is really in a very fast pace. The best that government can really, or the authorities can do, is to see us as indicators of improvement and aligning their policies to really suit that. And this is exactly what we can put together if all the stakeholders or the private sector comes in as a whole to achieve.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And quickly, I have a question for Mr. Wisdom. You mentioned during the course of your presentation that you use insect meal and fish meal for your protein source. Can you briefly expatiate in that? Do you produce this insect meal in your industry, or you are imported?
We have the insect meal produced in Ghana. We have the setup. We launched this 2008. We produced the first batch of the BSF right from the culturing stage, from the rearing stage through the processing. So all our setups here are actually in good shape for that regard. Where we realized going back to the for the fish meal had to do with the early days of our activities, because we need to have huge capacity of the products. And at the moment, looking at digestibility, the insect meal is actually channeled for the fingerlings feed, and we're focusing on the fish meal for the grower feeds precisely.
Thank you very much. We thank you, all our presenters, Karen, Mr. Israel Yusuf, Mr. Wisdom. We thank you all for the beautiful presentation for this session. We are actually gaining a lot, and we hope that our audience too, they have gained one or two things from this presentation. And then we have seen majority the challenges and some of the ways to solve these challenges. And we hope that by this time next year, or any time when we come together, we'll be able to get more solutions to these challenges. I'm very grateful for the organization of this program, the Aquafeed development in West Africa. Thank you very much. We are grateful. Thank you all. Bye.
All right. Session.
A minute.